First of all, before I start talking, I want to hear from you guys. What are you here for? Huh? To better communication, to have a happy marriage? Okay, so you don't have it yet, Yani? No, seriously, I want to hear from you. What do you want to learn from this conversation? We're going to talk about communication skills. What is it that you're trying to learn here? What do you want to learn from this conversation? Yes? You want to build a happy Muslim family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it successful, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Yes?
How to effectively communicate during good events.
How to become an effective communicator. Hopefully, we'll talk about the context of marriage, obviously, inshallah ta'ala. Yes?
Make my wife happy.
To make your wife happy? Good luck with that. Rule of thumb, ya jama'ah. Rule of thumb. If you're individually not happy, you cannot make anyone else happy. You really need to be content, and just to learn to be content and happy with what you have, and I guarantee you can make anyone else happy in your life. But if you're never happy with yourself, it's going to be very hard to convince someone else to be happy with you. So make sure to focus on this. However, when it comes to the relationship, don't fight in the marriage, don't fight for your happiness. Because that's going to make you feel miserable and make them feel even miserable. Instead, just irrelevant of being married or not, try to be happy. And that's something I talked about in last year, actually, convention. I don't know if you remember that. Happiness is not a goal you can achieve at all. It's not a goal you achieve. It's a reward you get for achieving something else. Whatever that is called actually qana'a and rida, which means satisfaction, contentment. If you're content, you'll become the happiest person on earth. But if you try to fight for happiness, every time you get one level of happiness, you realize there's happier. And then happier, and then happier. With the social media, and specifically Instagrammers and pictures, still pictures and videos, you're always happy and your life always look awesome for you until you see someone else's life. Then suddenly you feel miserable. Now we need to go there as well too. Oh, I need to find where they eat that stuff from. I want all these kind of things. Then your life becomes miserable all of a sudden. So be happy and you will make your spouse happy, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. Communication skills. What does it mean when we talk about communication skills? See, when it comes to communication, it's something you do whether you like it or not. You know, when you go silent, you remember the husband and wife when they get upset with each other and they just go silent? They go silent mode. Why? Because he says, I don't want to get into troubles. You are getting in troubles anyway. Where is this coming from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا. It is He who created you, who brought you out from the wombs of your mothers. No, absolutely nothing. Which means the standard rule in our life is ignorance, really. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us fitrah. That's innate knowledge in our hearts that we build on, alhamdulillah. And in order for us to acquire that excess knowledge, He said, وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ. He said subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave you sam, absar and afida, which means hearing, sight and hearts by which you process. So you collect the information, hearing and seeing and reading obviously, and then you process that. If you look at what Allah says over here, He didn't say speaking. He did not say speaking. He said He gave you ears to hear with, eyes to see and read, and then you process that information. So if you want to seek knowledge, it's not by lecturing as much as actually listening and reading and learning. The same thing, if you want to process any information you get from your spouse, you need to learn to be a good listener. So from the Quran, Allah is telling us, focus on listening is much more important than even seeing or anything else. Which is why the ulama, they say, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began speaking about hearing. He said because this is the first, probably one of the 5, 6 senses we get. It's the first one we acquire and the last thing we lose. Because when you're a baby in the wombs of your mother, you can hear. And that's why mothers, they talk to their babies, right? Say, hey, read the Quran, talk to them, this and that. So they hear sounds, subhanAllah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a long life with health and wealth, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and in goodness. When we die, what is the last thing a person hears in their grave? The footsteps of the people as they leave out from the cemetery. And then that's it, we go into silence. At least from this world at least. So it's the most important thing, and unfortunately in relationships and communication, it's the least mastered by many people. Everybody tried to master the public speaking, stage. But the listening, few people focus on this. So if you'd like to be a good communicator, begin with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began with. You hear, listen, then you read and learn, process the information, And Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so you might be grateful. Gratitude is very important. We're going to come to this in details, inshallah ta'ala. And another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, also Surah Al-Tabarak, Surah Al-Sajda, He says that, قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ, that few people really are grateful. We have given them the tools by which they can hear and see and process the information, but few people are truly grateful. So gratitude is extremely important for communication to be effective. No matter what you do, what you say, without gratitude, there is no foundation for this information honestly to stay. You don't build in anything. So something we're going to talk about inshallah ta'ala with regards to effective communication. So, when we talk about effective communication, I don't know how many of you attended my last year's session here when we talked about the silent killer of all relationships. Anyone remember what's the silent killer of all relationships? Silence. No, not silence. The silent killer of all relationship. It cut ties between you and your family, your spouse, your children. It cut ties between you and Allah Azza wa Jal even. When people lose faith, it's the exact same reason. It cut ties between you and yourself. When you sometimes feel, disconnected with yourself, it's the exact same reason. What is the silent killer of all relationship? Yes. That's the feeling you get when you don't get it. But you're close. Yes. Expectations. The silent killer of all relationship is expectation. When you get married with what? Expectations. Is it haram to have expectation? No one said that. You can expect as much as you want, but be reasonable. But remember, when you set yourself for expectation instead of plans, you set yourself for failure. So expectation, if you don't meet it, you feel disappointed. And that leads obviously to multiple disappointment, and the greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment, and then eventually at some point you start getting angry. Anger becomes a manifestation. People think anger is a problem. We're going to talk about domestic and spousal abuse in the next session, inshallah ta'ala, as part of this kind of like plug-in. So eventually anger becomes the manifestation because we're developing right now the uncertainty about my future, my life, my marriage, my sanity even, which leads to an anxiety, fear of the unknown, and then you start becoming numb, and as a result you start getting into resentment, all that stuff. So what's the solution? To remove the uncertainty you have in your relationship. How do we do that? We said through communication. For those who've been with us last year, we said communication is a key point here. We did not elaborate much on it. This session is about elaboration, inshallah, on what communication should look like. When it comes to communication, there are 3 levels for the communication. Any communication happens in 3 layers. The first layer is the basic layer. When we say basic layer, what does it mean exactly? When you need to communicate, what do you need, a jama'ah? Anyone? Tell me.
Language.
Huh? Language. Thank you very much. And good to see you after a long time. Hayakallah. So, language. You need language. What else? Huh? Tone. You're part of the language. Okay. Information. Something that is sensible to share. Okay. What else? Manners. The etiquette of doing it. Yeah. Huh? The setting. What else? The other person to talk to, okay, which means the one thing we just missing, which is the most important thing, husband and wife, they fight over. What is it? The time. Making the time. Like we all, mashallah, read so many books, attended so many seminars, videos, this and that. I know a lot about communication. For God's sake, I'm a senior executive in this company, multi-communication, I have a degree in this and that. You have all the qualifications, but you're too busy. You don't even have time to sit together to talk. So time and space. Communication doesn't happen in vacuum. If you're going to need to have really effective communication, you're going to make time for it. Many people, when do they make time? At the end of the day. Which means after I'm done doing everything. When you're done doing everything, what do you plan to do? Recreational time. No one's going to communicate in recreational time, jama'ah. And that's why husband and wife, they're always stressed out. They don't communicate well. You have no option. You have to make time to communicate. And that time doesn't have to be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Quality time. It could be 10 minutes and 10 minutes. And we're going to share a few things, inshallah ta'ala. But I want to share with you that the most important thing about communication is to have that basic understanding of communication. To have time for it and to have the language for it. And then we come to the attitude and the akhlaq and the manners of how to do that. So when it comes to time, what is the best time for husband and wife to communicate? Anyone? When they're asleep. They dream about the future, right? No, but seriously, what is the best time for husband and wife to have communication? Morning? Huh? After breakfast? When they're nurtured, alhamdulillah, very well first? What else? When they're together? Okay, and when is that going to happen? Yeah. Okay, so you all agree that now as we start conversing, everybody's looking at their schedule now, suddenly. So some people say the morning, some people say the evening, after, when we're on a trip, when we're on a journey, blah, blah, blah. Which means there is really no such thing as this is the best time to talk to your spouse. It's subjective. It depends on your schedule, it depends on your life. But they say there are certain times could be the best, which is the best 10 minutes and 10 minutes to have an impression on your spouse. What are the best and most important, most valuable 10 minutes and 10 minutes of your day and evening with your spouse? The last 10 minutes in the morning before you leave, and the first 10 minutes when you come back after a long day. Think about those 10 minutes and 10 minutes. How do they look like? If they look like, mashallah, romantic and lovey-dovey, and you just don't want to leave their hands because you don't want to go away from them, then you're awesome, really. But if it always like, where are the keys? Where's the lunchbox? The kids, this, that, then good luck having good conversation. It's not going to happen. Most people, the last 10 minutes is miserable. Really. It's miserable. It's not like what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to say, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقبل بعض نسائه وهو صائم ثم يخرج إلى الصلاة. He used to kiss his wife on his way out to the masjid while fasting. What do you call this, Jama'ah? A kiss of kindness and tenderness. And that's what it means. He's fasting. He's going to the masjid, have wudu. So he's going to kiss her and leave. It's not a lustful kiss. It's actually out of respect, out of love. He was kissing her a goodbye kiss. And when he comes back, it's the same thing too. She used to say about the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to come back home, the first thing he does, he brushes his teeth. He fixes kind of like his breath. And then she said, قَالَتْ مَيَأْتِ, and he comes closer to her, فَيُقَبِّلِ مِنْ وَجْهِ مَا يَشَاءُ. He kisses me on my face everywhere he wants. What does that mean exactly? Like, I missed you. Like, he's so passionate about it. Because like, I missed, oh my God, it was a long day. Can you imagine if the beginning of your day and the end of your day look like that? Like the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? You will have it all, inshaAllah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So these moments are very precious. So you have to find time for you guys. I cannot tell you do it, after Fajr or before you go to sleep or this or that. You know better than anybody else, but you have no excuse. You have to make time and space for communication, inshaAllah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. Now usually they say, when it comes to communication, it's all about also the behavior that comes with it. No matter what you say, it's the behavior that comes with it. That's very important. And they say the ratio of a happy marriage to have a happy relationship, it doesn't mean you cannot have problems. Problems come with the marriage anyway, whether you like it or not. It's attached. But some people, they have it different because of their attitude and their akhlaq and their manners. So in terms of ratio, they say for every 5 good behaviors in the relationship, in a healthy relationship, there is 1 bad behavior. But if you see that your ratio is off, means your marriage is not on the right track. You need to fix it. But the average ratio is actually 1 to 5. 1 bad, 5 good. But if you have it the other way around, may Allah make it easy for you. You need serious counseling. Now, but again, try your best, inshallah, to make that. So I will share with you some of these. I'm going to share 5 bad behaviors in a relationship in the basic communication skills and 5 good, inshallah. The 5 bad behaviors. Number 1, what does husband and wife hate the most when it comes to conversation and talking? Can you guys guess? Not arguing. Huh? Not paying attention? Something else? The thing that, allow me to say, that pisses you off, basically, what is it? Huh? Criticism. Judging. When they start criticizing you. Like, no matter what I do, they always find the fault in it. Like, the food is awesome, right? You have a buffet there. Where's the falafel? Right? But subhanAllah, you have all that good stuff there. Where's the falafel? Why the shai is not with na'na? Why is it with meramiya, for example? You always find something to criticize. So criticism is one of these bad things. However, I have to admit, we can't live without criticism. Why? Because criticism is what, Jama'ah? It's kind of like part of and development department. So you have to give some criticism, feedback in order to develop the relationship. However, it's not about the criticism that it's bad or good, it's the way you give it. And that's why you need to learn to neutralize criticism. How do you do that? When you talk, you don't talk with judgmental words. Don't do that. Also, when you receive it, don't take it as a fact. Take it as an opinion from your spouse, and that will reduce much of the tension. That's the first bad thing that happens in communication, criticism. And we talk about constant criticism. Number 2, flooding. When we say flooding, what it means exactly? Like non-stop. Really non-stop. Sometimes we call it nagging, right? But nagging between man and woman is different. But literally the word is flooding. Why? Because when it comes to flooding, it's just like, subhanAllah, there's no filter. And because there's no filter, we keep dumping everything, all together. Sometimes as a husband and wife, the expectation that you are my emotional dumpster. And you have to accept that when you get married to me. So therefore, when I'm stressed out, you're the only one I can just open up and just dump everything on you. And then I just go, Alhamdulillah, thank you very much. And you start looking for your husband. Where is he? Under all that trouble, right? But seriously, we expect you to accept me and take me in. And that is something so sweet about being a husband and wife. You have to accept to be vulnerable, but too much of it can kill you. So make sure not to flood your spouse with all that stuff. So the third thing that is actually bad that happens in relationship is a long, and again I say long silent treatment. I mean, it's okay to have silent treatment. I'm not going to say it's halal or haram. It's a human thing. When you get upset with somebody, what do? Naturally, what do? You shut down. Like, I'm upset. Try to please me. Come and fix it. But obviously, our ego kicks in and comes in the way and just, no, you come and fix it. And then we wait, mashallah, everybody's ego is taken into the next level and never resolve the issues. So it becomes a problem. Silent treatment, it happened even at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Umar bin Khattab, he heard the wives of the Prophet ﷺ will give him the silent treatment, he freaked out for his daughter Hafsa, who was wife of the Prophet ﷺ. So he goes to her house and he goes, Qala, is it true what I heard that you give the Prophet ﷺ the silent treatment? Qalat, Na'am, wallahi inna ghadibahu hatta akhir al-nahar. We get upset with him the whole day, until the end of the day. And Umar, he says to his daughter, Ya bunayya, don't do this, you're not like Aisha. Like, listen, Aisha can do it and get away with it, but you can't. Be careful. For subhanAllah, even that led to the whole story of Al-Ila. When the Prophet ﷺ got extremely upset with them, he just kind of like, that's it, I'm done. And he boycotted his wife for an entire month. And at the end of the month, Allah revealed to him the ayah where he gave them the option between staying with him on his standards, or I can release you, give you the pleasure of this world. Enjoy it. But they all chose to stay with the Prophet ﷺ. The point is, silent treatment is part of our life. It happens, but too long and too much of it becomes toxic. Really toxic. Sometimes the lady she's being too quiet and shut down. And for her, she's waiting for her husband to come and inquire. And the husband on the other side is just like, MashaAllah, I have a wonderful wife. Tabarakallah. She doesn't bother me. She doesn't complain. Well, you know what? When people come to me for counseling and they say, Sheikh, my wife keeps complaining, I said, you're lucky. Because what do you mean? I said, she trusts you to come and complain to you. You start getting worried when she goes quiet. That's when she gives up. And in honesty, you don't want to live with someone who gives up on you. It's not going to be healthy, it's not going to be fun, it's not going to be nice at all. So be careful with that. Number 4, the I versus we. A lot of people, when they get married, at some point, specifically in our time, and I have to say that I'm so sorry for our younger generations who are growing up in this new system of radical individualism, self-centered culture. The whole idea of I and my happiness and my priority and this and that is killing our marriages. Why? Because the husband and wife, when they get married and they rub each other the wrong way, unfortunately, at some point it becomes me versus you instead of us altogether, or we. So that whole idea of, I deserve this, I deserve that, and I deserve this, and I deserve that, and eventually everybody starts fighting for their own success or happiness or personal joy, and they depart that. So speaking with language such as I, and always looking for your personal, goals, you have to start learning. Once you get married, you need to shift from I to us and we. The whole time you spend with your gang and your friend and all that stuff, you can keep some of it, but it doesn't mean you should be on the account of being a husband and wife right now. Number 5, mind reading. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. The husband, they always complain that their wives are just like psychic, tabarakallah. They know how to read minds, yani. I just got into the house. She knows everything right away. How did she know that? Well, you posted something probably online. You left some trails in your emails probably here and there. But seriously, mind reading is bad because we go into the intentions. A lot of it about assumptions, unfortunately. You see, assumptions is bad. Why? Because when we deal with assumptions, we go with the worst case scenarios. But what's the problem? Why do people go with assumptions? Because you don't communicate, you don't share information. If you don't share information, you cause people to go into assumptions. That's the thing. You don't want your spouse to assume things about you, then share with them what they need to know about you. Otherwise, you leave it for them to assume that. So, what are some of the good things that we do in communication, inshallah? Number 1. The number 1 thing that opposes criticism, what is it, Jama'ah? Huh? Praise. Or we say appreciation. Actually, let me put it this way for you. Why appreciation, words of compliments is extremely, extremely, extremely important in a relationship. I repeat, words of compliments. Why? Because statistically speaking, the number 1 reason for husband and wife to divorce, or the number 1 reason for a relationship to fail is what? Can you guys guess? Why do people cheat? Let me put it this way, or even want to leave the relationship. The number 1 reason, what is it? Lack of communication is the most common answer I get, but it's not the problem. It's just a symptom. The number 1 reason, because they feel emotionally dissatisfied. Happiness, basically. Emotionally dissatisfied. Okay, that's number 1 reason. When you investigate that, you will find that the number 1 reason for them to feel emotionally dissatisfied is because of what? Lack of appreciation. And the number 1 factor they miss in the appreciation whole game thing is what? Words of compliment. Like, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. And when it comes to appreciation, we're not asking you to appreciate your spouse for something they haven't done. We're asking you to appreciate them for something that is normal and ordinary. Many people think of appreciation, no, they wait for something great to happen so they can appreciate them for it. No, it doesn't have to be a jama'ah. You can simply appreciate them for the ordinary things. Just the fact, and what is the number 1 thing that the best form of appreciation you give to your spouse? What is it? When you compliment what? Things they have no control over. What are the things they have no control over? Huh? Money? Inshallah. You must be rich, tabarakallah. No. Let's talk after the session. No, seriously. What is the thing? Huh? The things that they need appreciation for the most is things they don't have a control over, and that is basically their personal personality, their looks, and their personality. Just like the harshest criticism is in things they have no control over. And that's when people go mean, what do they attack? Character assassination. Ala tul. You're ugly, your family is this, you're that, all these things that are, what do I do with that? I mean, Allah created me this way, right? But that is the harshest thing, Allah musta'an, because we go so mean, we go just right there. I have no control over this issue. Just like, again, the best compliment you give to people in things they have no control over, their looks and their personality and stuff. So like, you're beautiful, you smell nice, mashallah, jazakallah khair for being part of my life. These things. It doesn't have to be, thank you for the $10 million you brought me last night. It doesn't have to be for that, jama'ah. Just for the ordinary things. That makes miracles, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. So make sure to appreciate daily, appreciate. 3 times you appreciate your spouse. So how many husband and wife we have here? Raise your hand. Okay, your assignment before you leave this session, before you're gonna hold your spouse and tell them, I want to thank you very much for something, whatever that is, okay? You choose something to appreciate them for, inshallah ta'ala. Tayyib. Number 2 in good things, inshallah, to do is intentional conversation. What does that mean? Intentional conversation is because communication has to happen, consciously, jama'ah. Many people, they avoid conversations, just like husband and wife when they talk. Everybody dreads the moment we're just like, do you have a minute? When you hear the word, do you have a minute? Run for your life, right? Because everybody knows, oh my God, what does that exactly mean? No, but seriously, we have to have intentional conversations. Like if you say, honestly, right now, I don't. But if you give me 35 minutes, let me finish this inshallah ta'ala. Let's have a cup of tea together, we can talk. That's how we do it. Make it intentional conversation. Instead of just, waiting, I'm in a hurry, I have to leave in 10 minutes, blah, blah, blah. What do you want? It doesn't work like this. It has to be intentional conversation. Number 3, instead of silent treatment, we do what we call timeout. What does that mean? You put yourself on timeout. Really? Oh, I've never done that before. Well, good luck. You're going to start doing it from now, inshallah ta'ala. What does that mean? When I'm upset, I can't talk, I'm going to mess it up. If I go long into silent treatment, I'm going to mess it up as well. So I tell my spouse, honey, listen, I know you're upset right now. I don't have the right words to fix this right now, but please give me some time. Just give me 1 hour, 2 hours, let me calm down. Let me go to the masjid and come back again. Let me talk to my mom for a few seconds, I'll be back with you. Whatever that is, that makes you just calm down. Let me eat my ice cream and I'll come back to you. Let me go and watch Artugro episode and come back again. Whatever you guys do just to calm down, okay? Just calm down and then say, I'll give myself a timeout and then we can talk. It's very important. Instead of the long silent treatment that has absolutely no end to it, give yourself timeout. Number 4, instead of the teamwork. I don't know how many of you guys as husband and wife have some common things you do with each other. Because when you do things with each other, there's a big chance for you to communicate and talk. Like you like gardening, for example. You like, housework, for example, or even more like cooking, for instance. Whatever that is, shopping together, anything. If you go around with each other, you're gonna have better chance to start talking. But if every time your spouse asks you for something, no, you go. No, you do it. No, blah, blah, blah. You don't share anything in common, so you're gonna lessen the time that you have to communicate with each other. And last point in the good communication, inshallah ta'ala, is listening actively. I guess you know what that means exactly. When you listen, don't bring your phone with you to the table. And even they say, just having the phone on the table while you speak, that's bad enough. Let alone if it's in your hand, yani. Some people they say, no, Sheikh, don't worry, my phone is upside down. Well, it's even worse, yani. Because you keep waiting for the light to turn on. But listen actively. Take everything out of the way and let them know that you're actively listening to them. So the first layer we said about effective communication is called basic communication. That's the first thing. Time, space, and attitude that comes with it. Number 2, the second layer of communication right now to have it successful is called connection. What does that mean? Just because you communicate doesn't mean you connect with your spouse. Like what? Make an example. Chocolate, for example. I always bring this example. If, let's say, you love dark chocolate, your spouse loves milk chocolate. Okay? You love dark chocolate, they love milk chocolate. Every time you want to bring your spouse something nice, you bring them what? Dark chocolate. And they love milk chocolate. Is that clear? So first time you bring them dark chocolate. Second time, dark chocolate. Third time, dark chocolate. The first few times, how is your spouse going to react to it? They're going to be okay, oh, it's so sweet, so nice, and then they put it in the cabinet somewhere. And then the next time, third time, after 10 times, what are they going to start saying? Like, hello, right? I love milk chocolate. And most, of course, the spouse, the husband in this case, let's say the husband in this case, you say, no, you're wrong, dark chocolate better than milk chocolate. What's wrong with you? It's the best, it's more expensive, this, and that. I know, but I don't like it, I like milk chocolate. No, you're wrong, you have to like dark chocolate. So the communications, of course, goes lost in the middle. Why? Because now you're trying to do that communication or love your spouse in a way that is only meaningful to you, not to your spouse. You can't love your spouse on your terms. You have to love them on their terms. As long as it's halal, why not? You see, this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed this in the Quran about the subject of connection and communication. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Mu'minun, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Success for other believers, those when they pray with what? Khushu'. What does khushu' mean, ya jama'ah? Focus and concentration, right? And what does focus and concentration mean exactly? You pray, if you want your salat to be effective in your life, then you need to do it on His terms, not your terms. And His terms is to be with focus and concentration. Our terms is what? قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ أَعْطَانَاكَ الْكَوْثَرَ. And we're done. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I did my duty. Check. That's it. You want the salah to be effective, do it on His terms. And Allah did not praise the believers for being believers. He didn't praise them because they prayed, because they should, they're believers. He praised them when they prayed, they connected. And that's why many people, they come, Sheikh, I've been praying 10, 15 years, I don't feel it. I said, what's the quality of your salah? You know, always on the hurry, you had to go from errands here, there. So that's why you're not getting the effect of your salah. Because you're not connecting on his terms, you connect on your terms. Same thing when it comes to love between a husband and wife. You want to connect with your spouse? On their terms. How do I know their terms anyway? It's very simple. Ask them. Oh, I'm afraid to ask the question. Then you're going to always be on an assumption mode. You just need to ask and have the courage to ask them, what do you want me to do for you? Give me 5 things I love you love for me to do for you. And what are the 5 things that you dislike for me? So that's another assignment for the husband and wife, inshallah ta'ala. I want you to write down the top 5 things you want your spouse, you want basically to ask your spouse, what are the top 5 things you want me to do for you? And the top 5 things you want me to stay away from. And share it with each other. Now here's the thing. When you read this list, it might actually make your blood boil. It's okay, take a shower, it'll be fine, inshallah ta'ala. Cold shower. But no, seriously, when you take that list, remember, it doesn't have to make sense to you, but it has to make sense to your spouse. Because that's their list. This is how they see love. As long as it's halal, as long as it's reasonable, then it should be fine, inshallah ta'ala. Here's some tips about how you can connect with your spouse. When husband and wife, they talk, they always say, Sheikh, whenever we talk, we fight. I said, of course. Because you don't know what you're talking about. No, don't. I attend your class, attend your seminar, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, it's not about that. When the conversation happens, that's when you need to recall everything. But what's the problem? Why do we don't connect during a conversation when it's heated up like that? Very simple phase. Whenever you're in an emotional state, the fact and the truth becomes absolutely irrelevant. No one cares who's right and who's wrong. We care about things. You heard me. Make me feel better. So when you guys are in a heated discussion or fighting with each other, don't try to win and score points with each other. No one really cares. Which is why when husband and wife come to me and they say, he said, she said, everybody says, no, wallahi, I didn't say. Wallahi, you said. Wallahi, you did. I said, I believe you both. It's just like, how come? Astaghfirullah. How come? They're both saying, wallahi, wallahi. How do you believe them both? I said, because I know when you're when you're emotionally charged so much, this gets blocked, basically. When your emotional system fires up, your rational system goes offline. And as a result, you don't recall anything. He says, I believe you, but it didn't register when it happened. That's the problem. So what do we do in this case? We need to learn a few things. Remember, when you're in an emotional state, don't worry about who's right and who's wrong. No, it's you who said this, you who said that. No one is really, even if you are right, I'm not going to give you the pleasure of winning the argument. So therefore, it's always lose-lose in this situation. So what do we do? Focus on something else. What is that? When a man talks, women talk, they share different values. So when a man talks, what does he usually share with women? For the ladies, when a man talks, what does he share with you? Nonsense, right? No, but when a man talks, he focuses on the information. He focuses on facts. Like he wants to show you how brilliant he was, how amazing he did at work, mashallah. And he's, tabarakallah, come with all the power to show you his achievements. And she's just like, okay, could you please fix the table until the kids come for dinner? And he's just like, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Right? No, but in all honesty, when men talk, they mainly focus on information and facts. And that's why they sound very dry to women. When women talk, what do they share? What do they share mostly? Feelings and emotions. Which is why for a man, it's just like, okay, how do you want me to process this? Because for him, it's about, 1 + 1 = 2. I don't see 1 + 1. I see variables. They don't connect right now in this sense. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be stereotypical over here. Sometimes a man is extremely emotional in his conversation. And sometimes the lady, she's the one who's, mashallah, have all the rational in the conversation. This is normal. It happens. But generally speaking, a man focuses on the content and women focus on the context. Which is why they never connect. He's trying to make sense of what she's saying. He doesn't get the background music that comes with it. All of that. He doesn't get it. And no matter what he says, if he says the truth on a golden plate, she doesn't really see the facts. She only sees that he's being harsh, being rude, insensitive, whatever that is. So that's why they don't connect. So make sure, as a husband and wife, try to learn to connect with your spouse in that sense. For a man, focus on the context. I know the content might not be most appealing to you, but why is she saying that for? What happened there that makes her talk like this? I need to know that. And for the lady, when a man just talks to you, he doesn't mean to hurt you. He's just giving some information. Maybe it's boring, it's not relevant to you, but for him, that's the most relevant moment at the moment. Try to focus on what he's saying so that you can help each other to connect with each other, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. As a recommendation for you, I want to really give recommendation for the book of Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages. Check it out. See what's your spouse's love language, inshallah ta'ala, that you can benefit from with Allah Azza wa Jal. The third point about communication right now, how to have an effective communication. So we said the first layer is having what, jama'ah? Basic communication, space and time and attitude when it comes to talking to each other. Number 2, we said what? Connection. How do you connect with your spouse? In a way that is meaningful to your spouse. How do I know that? Focus on the context, depends who you are. And also get to know, their love language. Ask them, what are the 5 things you want me to do for you? And the 5 things you want me to stay away from. Get to know what they love, what they hate. And these actually lists, they're not Quran munazzal. They don't stay fixed, they change over time. As we grow in the relationship, subhanAllah, we switch things, and our interest changes as well too. So eventually we're going to keep them dynamic, inshallah ta'ala. The third point about effective communication, just because you communicate and just because you connect, it doesn't mean you will be on third level. To make that effective communication, you have to synchronize. What does that mean? I learned that from one of the IT guys actually. He said, Sheikh, that's just exactly what happens in IT. Whenever you press something on Google and you press enter, what do? You send a communication request to all the servers out there that has the information. You communicate with all the servers. These servers connect with each other in order to share the information. And then what happens? They download the information on your page, on your phone, your laptop, iPad, whatever that is, in order for you to get the information. If one server slows down, the video keeps buffering. It's very annoying, right? And if one server slows down, the picture doesn't come clear. It's not completely pixelized. And also the page might be half, complete or empty, whatever. Why is that? Because one server decided to slow down. And that's exactly what happens in relationships. In relationships, if we're not in sync with each other in terms of our goals, our vision, our dream for the family, we go into divergent paths. That's where the problem is. Like if I ask husband and wife, usually when I see the husband and wife, they're not on the same page, I simply ask them a simple question. Very, very basic question. It says, 5 years from now, where do you see yourself as a husband and wife? And the answer that I get from them is looking at each other. It's like, I have no clue. So that's exactly why we have a problem. You guys don't have benchmarks to acquire, to aspire to. And this happens a lot with the younger generation. Why? Because the younger generation, mashallah, they're achieving a lot of benchmarks so quickly in their lives. Like before they hit 35, they already bought their dream cars. They have their bought their house, the furniture that they always dreamed about that they have in their household. All these things already accomplished at 35 or maybe 40 years old. And then what's left for them? Okay, these things their parents took them 25 years to get there. So that's why when husband and wife, they want to get married, I said, what do you guys do? Well, we still want to, inshallah, put a down payment on a house before we move in. I said, why? You guys are still just one man and one woman. Wait until you have kids. No, because it's a nice neighborhood. I said, just listen to me. It's not about a nice house or not. It's about a nice relationship or not. You guys need to keep, benchmarks to acquire to. Start with an apartment, and then you go to a bigger apartment, and then go rent a house, and then go buy your house. This is basically kind of growing together. Otherwise, if you achieve everything at 35, it's just like, now what? That's when the husband and wife, they start looking actually into divergent paths. So synchronizing is very, very important. How do we synchronize anyway? Sometimes it's very simple. And I usually tell the young couples before they get married, and that's something with pious hearts, it's very important to have actually premarital counseling, subhanAllah. He asked the couple, says, okay, I want you to give me your top 5 expectations in the next 2 years of your relationship. What do you guys expect? And if you take 2 different lists, that's a red flag. You guys are going to need to be in sync in what you want to do in the first 2 years of your marriage, and then the next 5 years. and then it's 7 years, and the next 10 years, and so on. So you have short plan and long-term plans for your marriage. Otherwise, if you don't have any plan, you're just waiting for everything to just keep rolling, bil baraka, inshallah ta'ala, you're going to get to this moment where just like, okay, where do we go from here? You guys are going to have to make some plans, inshallah ta'ala, for yourself. Now, also, these plans that we should suggest for you, make sure to keep them flexible. They're not also Qur'anun Munazzal. They need to be flexible. You can learn things, inshallah ta'ala, and keep changing them as your circumstances change, the variables in your life change. You might have 2 kids, so sooner than you expected maybe, or even switch jobs, or have to travel somewhere else, or whatever that is. SubhanAllah, things happen. So therefore, you're going to need to make these plans always flexible, inshallah, for you. Also, age matters. A lot of young people, when they plan things, mashallah, when they have the health and the wealth and the power for it at a young age. They don't realize when they hit 35, for example, or 40 years of age, things will change. And that's why we say, slow down, take it easy. Don't try to accomplish everything so quickly. There are things you cannot do until you get to a certain age, so leave it to then inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So keep things very flexible for you, inshallah. So with that said, we learn from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's the greatest communicator of all time. You see, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to Aisha radiallahu anha, and that's the true meaning of connection, really. He said to her, قال والله إني لا أعلم متى تكوني عني راضية ومتى تكوني علي غضبة. He says, I swear, I know when you're happy with me and when you're unhappy. She goes, how do you know that? Because إذا كنت علي راضية, when you're happy with me, you say كلا ورب محمد. And when you're upset, you say كلا ورب إبراهيم. Like she wouldn't mention his name, yani. But subhanAllah, he said that, why? For him, it was cute. Like, I can tell when you're upset. So you're giving me hints that when you're upset, to try to make it up with her, radiallahu ta'ala. So he connects with her. He knows when she's actually upset. I asked the husband and wife today, do you know when your spouse is upset or happy or in good mood or bad mood? If you say, yes, I know and I don't really care, then we're in trouble. You should care. You should care. But if you say, I tried, but it never goes well, hopefully with using some of these techniques, inshallah, to make some change. Some of you might say, Sheikh, you don't know my husband. I'm like, I don't need to know your husband, Allah. But I know Allah Azza wa Jal created us as human beings with the exact same laws, or what I call them laws of physics. Just like the laws of physics, you throw something up, what happens to it, Jama'ah? Comes down. Throw a ball against the wall, it bounces back, right? Same thing with marriage. These are rules of human nature. No matter how difficult you think your spouse is, if you use the exact same rules of human nature, you will get results. But you're going to have to learn them, just the laws of physics. It took the humans thousands of years to get to this point, subhanAllah. Now we have technology, we have designs, we have amazing things to do, that back in the days it was like aliens used to do these things for us. And now we do it ourselves, subhanAllah. Same thing with our relationships too. In order for the relationship to be successful, you need to learn some of these tricks and apply them. And it doesn't work first time, it's okay. I'll try again, and again, and again, and again. But the last thing I want to share with you is that no matter what I do, I don't control the hearts. You don't control the hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control of these hearts. What does that mean? I'm only responsible for making the effort. As for the results, that's in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I might be doing everything you said about communication and it's not working. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's a tweak you need to do that can change everything. Just like the compass. Just one tip there, subhanAllah, you just go a different direction. Maybe that's the thing you need to talk about. But overall, if you do everything perfectly, that doesn't mean you're going to get the results you wish for. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means to test us. And He says, لِنَبْلُوَ بَعْضَكُمْ بِبَعْضٍ أَتَصْبِرُونَ. We're going to test you with each other to see who's going to be patient. So maybe that's my test. Maybe that's your test. I'll do it, inshallah ta'ala, with grace, with mercy, with rahmah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give me the best bidnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. I ask Allah azza wa jal to give you all love and mercy in your lives, ya Rabbil Alameen. To give you the ability to communicate effectively with one another, ya Allah, for the goodness of this dunya and the akhirah. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Sallallahu Nabi Muhammad wa sallam. We still have more time for questions, right? Okay, so we have a lot of questions, and I hope, Okay, so as the kids are moving out with their lives, What are the keys to reestablishing the time between husband and wife? Like the empty nesters right now. Subhanallah, today in our culture, not like in the past, empty nesters, they become empty nesters at 40, 45 years old. Back in the days, they only become empty nesters at 70, right? Because by the time the old one is getting married, we have a young one still coming up, mashallah, right? Today, subhanAllah, the family chose to have 2 or 3 kids, and as a result, when the youngest hits, that age, khalas, they become empty nesters at a very young age. And that's when there are a lot of issues happening. And also adding to the problem, our children, they're not getting married younger either. Yani. So instead of marrying at 24, 25, now it's actually getting to 27, 28, 29, and 30, and even older. So as a result, again, these parents have a lot of empty time. So what do you do in this case? I really recommend for husband and wife, before you get to this point, no matter how beautiful your relationship is with your spouse, please consider taking what we call marriage coaching. Marriage coaching is not conflict resolution. It's not because you have a problem. Marriage coaching is actually just to avoid having problems. Why? Because, again, things change in your life. And with change, people, they will face one of 2 decisions. Whether to resist change because it was awesome for us all these years, or they will adapt to it. If they resist change, there's a chance they might break the relationship. How come? You break it because if you keep resisting that change, because I want to be happy as I used to be before, but the variables are changing right now. And like you see here, the spouse is asking, I need more time with you. Now, before they were busy with the other kids, now they want a time with you. So it becomes problematic for them. So therefore, I really suggest coaching sessions with a counselor, family counselor, who can help you with that, inshallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, to learn how to adapt to the new change that happens in our lives. How can you get your husband to open up more about his emotion and thoughts? Okay, so this is a very specific question. I asked whoever actually sent that question to come personally, inshallah. How do you prevent arguments and issues from arising with your spouse that are just based on mere personality differences? Here's the thing. Conflict in itself is never a problem. I repeat, conflict in itself is never a problem. A lot of people, they demonize conflict, and they heard advices from people, avoid conflict, avoid conflict, avoid conflict. That is the worst advice you've ever been given in a marriage. You know why? Because you cannot avoid conflict. It just happens. You're 2 different people, so you're going to eventually rub each other the wrong way at some point. Yani. So what do we do in this case? Simply, we need to learn how to manage our conflict, which means learn skills, negotiation skills. And that's why I always ask young couples at premarital, I said, you guys have to read on leadership, read on marketing, sales, and also negotiation. He says, why? I said, because you're getting married. I said, I'm not going in the stock market. I said, no, you are. Trust me. You need to be a leader in your household. You need to know how to market your ideas, how to sell your decisions, and to negotiate with difficult people that happen to your loved ones. Seriously, you need to learn these skills. And hopefully, inshallah, once you learn that, bidnillah, you will learn how to manage the whole idea of conflict. Why conflict happens anyway? Because simply, it's about change. When you push your spouse in one direction by making slight change in your life or their life, they freak out because you move them out of their comfort zone. So what are they going to try to do? Push back where they were, right? And when they push back, have you ever seen someone push back again to where they were before? Never. What do? They overcompensate. Just in case if you push me harder, I will just go back where we were before, right? So eventually we end up doing what? Like this. He pushes this way, I push this way, push this way, so we create friction. Once they start feeling the heat, what do? They take their hands off. We know we resolve the issue, and you leave a door open, another door open, another door open, another door open. Just like on your phone, when you have 100 apps you open for the last year, you didn't close any app. What happens to your phone? Acting funny, right? Isn't that what your spouse starts doing after some time? So basically start jamming, because you have too many apps in the background sucking life out of you. You have too many open doors you never closed, and they're sucking life out of you. You have to face them to close them, and sometimes you just close them by your finger. That's it. Just do this. You close these apps. Some of the problems you're fighting over just like, oh, I didn't mean that. I didn't think that you're doing it this way or that way. But we just don't dare talk to each other. So please make sure to do so, inshallah, to communicate. Well, my husband always wants me to look and act like someone else, but not me. I hope I'm understanding it the right way, yani. But if he wants you to be like, why don't you be like this one? Why don't you act like my sister, or my me, or sister-in-law, or this and that? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Subhanallah, remember when I said about the harshest criticism is about what? Personal personality. That's why it hurts. He might be saying it the sweetest way possible, like, honey, you know, my sister, mashallah, she's good at that stuff. Why don't you ask her and learn from her? And for her, just like, subhanallah, you killed me. Like, what did I say wrong? Nothing. It's just simply when we give someone advice, it's just as if we criticize them for they're not good enough about this issue. So what do we do in this case? Remember what I said about the neutralizing criticism? For this sister in particular, I hope the situation is about neutralizing that criticism, which means whatever your husband say, take it as an opinion, not as a fact. It hurts when you take it as a fact. But if you take it as an opinion, he would say, well, that sounds great, Jazakallah khair. I'll look into it, inshallah. Thank you. And we move on. If there's value in it, I'll take it. If there's no value, I'll just stick with what I have, inshallah ta'ala, and hopefully for improvement in Allah Azza wa Jalla. And by the way, an advice for the wise guy here is basically, if you keep comparing your spouse to somebody else, that's khalas, it's a formula for disaster, basically. Why? Because you will never be happy. Remember what the Prophet ﷺ says about comparison? In the matters of dunya, don't look for those who are below you. Look for those higher than you. Look for those who are below you. You'll appreciate what Allah has given you. But if you always keep looking at up there, you're going to hurt your neck and hurt your wife as well and spouse. So therefore, stop comparing, because you'll never be satisfied. What is the best way to handle your spouse's silence? The silent treatment. Honestly, it's a simple question, but I don't know what the root cause of it. If it's something we got upset about conversation versus has been for the past 5 years, that's a whole different game. So I hope you guys can take serious note into going into marriage coaching or counseling, inshallah ta'ala. Now there's so many questions, Jama'ah, over here, but they're telling me that the time is up already. I'll take one last short question, inshallah, quickly, from the middle. They're almost all the same, about the same thing. If the situation gets hot, and how do you diffuse the situation, and how do we calm things down? Now, so what's the best way to diffuse a situation when your spouse is upset and not understanding your point of view? My best advice for you, really the advice of Abu Darda, when he gave his wife that advice. He said to his wife, he said, قال إذا أنا غضبت فرضيني وإذا أنت غضبت رضيتك وإلا لن نصطحب. What does that mean? He says, if I get upset, try to please me in that moment. If you get upset, I'll try to please you. Otherwise, we'll never get along with each other. The problem in our life is that when he gets upset, she gets upset. Like, why are you upset? I'm the one who's supposed to be upset. Is that like, really? What about me? I'm the one who's supposed to be upset. So it becomes a contest who deserves to be more upset than the other one. So we escalate because everybody's trying to justify why he or she deserves to be upset more and more. So the whole conversation goes into what? Bring in the history of the past. Because I need to have evidences. So we start bringing everything into the conversation. Because I need to justify being upset. And she needs to be the same thing too. So we escalate the situation for no reason. And wallahi, the advice of Abu Darda is golden. I know in time of the conflict, it's just like, I can't do this. This is impossible. You have no idea what she did to me. But again, Abu Darda advice is better than for you to escalate the situation that goes nowhere. So in this case, when she's upset, even if she doesn't have the right to be upset, you know what? It's my turn to calm her down. And when he's upset, I'll try to calm him down. Yeah, but he's very difficult to calm down. May Allah make it easy for you. Make a lot of dua. So eventually, try your best to calm each other down in that moment, and then you can have a conversation later afterwards. But if you try to have that conversation in that moment in time, you're going to fight forever. So may remember that, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you all love and mercy for one another in your life in this dunya and the akhirah. Rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.